Hi everyone, welcome to another video where we explore the limited color palette. Today we are going to look at these three colors. We have Hansa Yellow Medium, this is Phthalo Blue red shade, and this is Pyrrol Scarlet. All three are from the Daniel Smith brand. This is actually their watercolor stick. It's supposed to look like this, but this particular color is a bit soft. So I sort of squeeze it into this pen and it looks like this. Let's start by painting some color swatches. I'm going to start with Hansa Yellow Medium. This is PY97. This is actually one of my favorite yellow colors. It's not as cool as lemon yellow, but it's still a very solid yellow. So Hansa Yellow is transparent. And next we have Pyrrol Scarlet PR255. This is a nice red. It looks like it's semi-transparent. And lastly we have Phthalo Blue red shade. This is a very strong and intense blue. The red shade version looks like a very intense version of French ultramarine. And this color is supposed to be transparent. You can see that it's really intense and it almost covers the words that I've written. And now let's paint this color wheel. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to Hansa Yellow to see what kind of green color I can get. Let me add more blue to the mixture. And now let's add some Pyrrol Scarlet to Phthalo Blue. And more Pyrrol Scarlet. Because of the underlying red bias and mixed with red color, we have a very muted purple. And this is Pyrrol Scarlet on its own. Let's add a bit of scarlet to Hansa Yellow Medium, and let's add more red to the mixture. I accidentally added some blue to this mixture, that's why it looks a bit dirty. Let me try again. So it should look like this with more red. Here's what we have so far. We have a very vibrant yellow, blue and red, and green is quite vibrant as well, and we have a very vibrant and bright orange. But for purple, it seems like this particular palette is not able to create bright and vibrant purples. And now let's try and mix the three colors together to see what kind of gray tones we can get. This is a bit greenish, so let me add a bit more red to that, and also a bit more blue. It's a bit difficult for me to get the exact proportion to mix the neutral gray. So here we have a shade that is more yellow, here it's more bluish or green, and here it's a bit reddish. For this particular wash, which is quite close to what I want, I try to mix this color first, and then I slowly added Hansa Yellow to this mixture, which got me this. So this is the sort of gray you can get with this limited color palette. Notice that these three colors, they are very clean in the sense that there is no granulation at all. Any texture that you see is actually from the cold press watercolor paper. Alright, this is the sketch that I'm going to color with those colors. I actually cheated a bit because I picked a subject that has a lot of yellow. This photograph was taken at an airport, and this is the buggy vehicle that pulls those cargoes around. So I'm going to be coloring this sketch with the help of this reference photo. Let's take a look at some of the colors first. So for this buggy, we have predominantly yellow. And here we have some highlights, and this is the actual yellow color, and this is the shadow color. So we have light yellow, dark yellow, and the shadow yellow. And for the cargo here, this area here, I'm going to be using just one shade. I probably will leave the paper white for this side here, but for this I will be mixing a gray tone for this. And as for the ground here, notice that the ground, it looks like it's quite warm. It's a grayish warm neutral tone, but more on the warm side. So when I mix this, I have to make sure that it's a bit warmer. I have also drawn some vehicles at the back. The vehicles, it looks like they are cooler, so I'll be mixing a cooler gray tone for all those vehicles at the back. But other than that, this is a pretty straightforward sketch. Oh, see these cones here? I put in some cones even though the picture did not have them, because I wanted to use the red color to color the cones. I want to show off the red color. I'm going to work very fast to pretend that I'm actually working outdoors. So I'm going to start by using Hansa Yellow. Let me just drop some water onto the paint here. A very light wash of Hansa Yellow for the lighted part. And I want to have some red as well, just to give it some variation. Just to give it some, to make it a bit more interesting rather than just flat yellow. So I'm just giving this a very general, very light wash. Later, when it's dry, I will apply a thicker wash of Hansa Yellow. On the front here, all these are actually going to be black. Some of these rectangles, they are going to be black, so I can just cover over with Hansa Yellow later. When I mix the black, I can cover over the Hansa Yellow. Let's mix a bit of red here as well. Now this guy here, he is wearing a yellow vest with some red or orange stripes that go across. Alright. For the vehicles behind, I will use this color, which is actually a mix of the three primary colors. This is actually a bit more greenish, a bit warm here. Maybe let me just add a bit more phthalo blue to it, so that it's not that warm. For the cargo, I'm using the scarlet. For the cargo, I'm using the scarlet mixed with a little bit of phthalo blue. So we have this nice gray, and let's color this as well. I'm leaving the top and the side of this cargo white. And here I realized that I forgot to color this this part here. This should be in yellow as well. And for the background, let me zoom out a bit. I want to use this color, so I'm going to mix the three primary colors together. So let me see what I can get. Let me add a bit of water because this is a large area. So let me add red first and a little bit of blue. So we have this color, maybe a bit more water. For some of these areas, I actually went into depth to add additional color when it's still wet. So here I add a little bit of blue, a little bit more blue. Oops, I think this is too much. So that is definitely too much. You can see the color shifting. Let me add a bit more water to that. For this background, I'm going to mix a darker shade using scarlet and phthalo blue. This can give me a very nice gray. You can see that this is quite dark. Maybe a little bit of Hansa Yellow as well, just to make it a bit more neutral. For the windows of the cars and vehicles, I'm going to just mix a very concentrated wash of Scarlet and Phthalo Blue. It's a bit challenging to color this because my brush is a bit large while the square is a bit small. The underside of vehicles are usually close to black. So this part is not dry yet, so the color is blending together. And now we can use a concentrated wash of Hansa Yellow for this. I'm going to add a bit of red again to give it some variation. So this whole thing here is supposed to be much darker. Now this is going to be in shadows, so later on I will just mix the shadow for that. This part is supposed to see through to the ground. I forgot to color that, so now I'm trying to get that same wash again. It's going to be very difficult to mix back to the same wash because I didn't do it the first time around, so the second time around is very difficult. And once again for the shadows, I'm going to use Scarlet and Phthalo Blue. I hope this is dry, if not it's going to blend quite messily. A bit too bluish, so I might want to add some red. I think I got the shadow. The legs of this guy should be much longer. So I got the shadow there wrong. Doesn't matter. And let's see. I hope this is dry. If not, the colors are going to blend in a very ugly manner. A smaller brush would be more appropriate here. Alright, lastly for the shadow that is cast on this vehicle, which is yellow shadow, I will be mixing yellow since there is yellow. Since the primary color on the vehicle is yellow, I'll add some blue to it and a bit more red to it. So let's see what we have. Let me just test out my mixture here. I think this should be fine. I hope so. This seat here inside is also in shadow, and the front of the vehicle is actually also in yellow. So actually I should have colored the shadow before I added the dark black. Alright, it's a bit dirty. I think it still works. Oh, I forgot to color this section. Alright. Let me wash my brush, and I'm going to use Scarlet to color the cones. I'm also going to use this color to color the vest of this person and the back of these cars here, and also this little light here, and maybe some of the lights here, maybe not here. This sketch is almost done. I just want to add one final touch. So take a look at this reference photo. The contrast between this cargo and the background, the contrast is very significant. However, here the contrast is not that strong. So I want to create a wash to basically cover this whole area here in the background so that this cargo can look more prominent by contrast. Sometimes it can be quite scary when it comes to adding shadow, especially really dark shadows. So in this case, I am mixing again the wash of Scarlet and Phthalo Blue. I'm not going to mix the colors very cleanly, so I'm just going to sort of just paint over this area. So immediately I can see the contrast. I want to add some colors for certain areas. I might want to dab in some additional colors. I forgot that the cones, they need to have shadows as well. If not, they are not going to look very real. Let me add some additional details. I like to put little dots on the ground so that it looks like there is more texture. And it also separates the ground from all these areas as well. I usually put more dots in the foreground and less dots in the background, because details in the foreground tend to be clearer. People can see more details in the foreground, so I put more dots there. Another thing that I want to do is there are some white markings on the ground, so I want to draw those in with this tube of whitewash. I'm using a much smaller brush so that I can really draw thin lines easily. So there's one line here, and another line here, one that goes through the back of this vehicle. And cuts through the back of this guy here as well. And another line here. The lines behind here, this is going to be very thin. Let's give this vehicle some number plate as well. And let me add a bit more red here. This back here, this vehicle back here is actually an ambulance. So this is the completed sketch. By adding the shadow behind, now the foreground elements, they really stand out because of the contrast. Let's take a closer look. This wash was mixed with Scarlet and Phthalo Blue, red shade. And this wash has a bit more yellow, that's why with the yellow and blue, this wash appears to be more greenish. With Scarlet and Phthalo Blue, you can get a wash that is something like this, which is quite nice. But it also is a bit flat, that's why I try not to mix the colors completely. And when you do not mix the colors completely, you get something like this, which is more interesting. So this is the cargo compartment. This is the vehicle. Now notice the shadows, the different shades of yellow. So for this part here, for the side of this vehicle, this part is supposed to be lighter. Actually, I should not have colored this part here because this is still on the side of this vehicle. but on the lighted side it's supposed to be lighter. And this is the yellow of the vehicle, and this is the shadow. And for the shadow, I use Hansa Yellow mixed with Scarlet and Phthalo Blue. For this dark area here, this shadow is a bit different from this shadow because I added more Scarlet and Phthalo Blue. Now notice the white gouache, it has now dried and it looks very nice. These are the road markings. And this is the staff, the crew on the ground. The road markings on the back here, I probably should not have colored this with the brush. I should have used the white gel pen so that I can get a thinner lines, because lines in the foreground, they should be bigger because they are in the foreground. Lines that are in the background, they are further away, so they should appear smaller. But here I use the same thickness, so it looks a bit weird. And these are the cones and their shadows. Notice how I do not really color inside the lines. I just basically just wash over the whole area here because I'm a bit too lazy to be neat. It takes a lot of concentration to color the lines, color within the lines. Another thing I want to talk about is this mixture here. This is not totally transparent, so you can see here this black line, it's almost covered by the wash. And here the line beneath is almost gone. So if you want to use this particular color palette for pen and ink sketches, note that the mixture is not completely transparent, so when you cover over the lines, they may get lost, they may get covered. And that's all for my tutorial for my color palette exploration today. I hope this is helpful. I have created other color palettes exploration videos as well. I've created a playlist for that. I will put the link in the video description below. You can check that out. One last thing before you go. Yesterday night I saw on my Facebook page an artist friend of mine, Reddy. He said that he has launched his third Kickstarter campaign to release his sketchbook. And I have bought his sketchbook, two of his sketchbook actually, through his Kickstarter campaigns, two of his earlier Kickstarter campaigns, and the sketches inside, they are just fantastic. It's really worth the money. So his third book will be released on Kickstarter as well. If you want to check it out, if you're interested to get a copy for yourself, just visit the link in the video description below. I'm going to back for another copy myself as well. So that's all for today's video. Bye!